Okay, good evening, everyone. And not only do we have a rain-out crowd over here in Shul, I see even on Zoom, it looks like it's rained out tonight. So this is quite an evening of rain in Los Angeles, California. People take those flash flood warnings very seriously, even in their homes. And but we're still going to learn, because no matter what, we have to learn, and we need the chizuk, we need the strength right now. And we're holding by 124 days into the war already in Gaza. 124 days. Whoever imagined 124 days ago where we would be in this world. And I would like to discuss tonight, based on things that we see in the Parsha, I think something that is happening to many of us as the war is dragging on and going on. In the very beginning, when everything took place, the emotions in every one of us was riding very high. We would hear about a death of a soldier. We would hear about a rocket that was exploding. We would hear about the people that were risking their lives. We heard about the tragic stories of children who were left in a drawer and their parents were slaughtered in the terrible atrocities of October 7th. We heard so much in the beginning. And everything that we heard moved us. We were moved to tears. We found ourselves walking around in pain. We couldn't function in a regular way that we normally did. We were thinking always about what was going on with our brethren in Eretz Yisrael. We started looking at the news and we saw that it's not only in Israel, there seems to be a world affair right now of anti-Semitism, and we were concerned. We tried to dedicate ourselves to the cause and doing more and making changes in our own lives to make the world into a better place. But we find ourselves now 124 days later, sitting at our computers every morning, scrolling down the list of soldiers, Rahman al-Islam, that were killed the night before, while we're sipping our latte and complaining to ourselves that it's not frothy enough this morning. And we're busy with our plans already. I can't help but see all of the ads that are coming in for the 5-star Passover programs in Kuwait this year, or somewhere in Dubai, and somewhere in tropical forests and jungles and exotic places that are going to cost tens of thousands of dollars a person. But we have people that are still not in their own homes, that are living in squalor, in the midst of the wilderness and the deserts of Eretz Yisrael. And so our senses and our feelings and our emotions, which is only natural for a human being, they get very dulled as time goes on. And the things that once used to touch us no longer really make much of an indentation. We're busy, again, like I said, you're looking at the news, whether it's on the screen, whether it's online, whether it's on your phone, and there's so many other things that are going on. We say, okay, how many today? Oh, only 3. Only 3 died last night. Well, Baruch Hashem, the other day there was 7, so now it's only 3. And we hear about the stories that are going on, and it just doesn't make the same impact as it did before. And in this week's Parsha, I believe there's a very valuable lesson for us to learn. And if perhaps we'll hear the words of the Torah and its Mefarshim, the commentators, maybe it will strike a chord with us, that chord that was struck 124 days ago, so that we should not lose the sensitivity to what is going on in the world right now. The Torah tells us like this: the ger lo yisayne, a ger, a convert, you should not oppress with your words. Which means a person that has converted to Judaism, you should be very, very careful what you say to them. And you should also not oppress them and extort or force money out of them. You have to be very careful with them. Ki gerim hayisem be'eretz Mitzrayim, because you also were gerim, you were also converts. You were strangers in the land of Egypt. Says Rashi on these words. Again, the Torah is giving us a reason. Why should you be sensitive to a convert? Why should you be careful with the words that you say? Why should you make sure that you don't squeeze too much money out of them and offend them and put pressure on them? Because you were also a ger, you were also a stranger in the strange land of Egypt. You know what it feels like, don't you? Says Rashi that im hoiniso, if you will end up using your words and cause pain to the convert, he's also able to turn back at you, and tit for tat, he could end up causing you pain as well. He'll say to you, you also came from strangers. The blemish that is in you, you should certainly not accuse your friend of having. So you're calling this person, you say to the ger, to the convert, I remember that mouth that used to eat cheeseburgers and Big Macs. Now what, you want to sit in the base midrash and you want to learn Torah? Your parents, your father used to worship Avodah Zarah, used to worship idols. Now you're a holy person, you're sitting in the base midrash with tefillin on your head. Says the ger, says the convert to the Jew, you're making fun of me? You're putting me down? You're oppressing me? Well, you came from the same place. You were once a wandering Jew in the land of Egypt. You were a slave. You were a stranger in that land. You should know what it feels like. So that's why you can't hurt the feelings of a ger, of a convert. Because if you hurt the feelings of a convert, he's going to say back to you, you're the same person. Don't you understand? Why are you making fun of me? I'll make fun of you also. That's what the Torah is expecting, that we're just going to end up fighting with each other. Na, kush, whatever you're going to say to your friend over here, it's you, me, it's you, it's me. And the Torah goes on. Kol almana v'yasayim, any almana, any widow, any woman that is a widow, Rachman al-Zan, v'yasayim, and an orphan, and there are so many widows and orphans in Klal Yisrael today. Leisa'anun, also with them, you are not allowed to oppress them. You have to be so careful the way that you talk. Very, very sensitive souls. Im ane sa'ane oisai, and if you end up oppressing them and causing them pain, kim tzoig yitzhak elai, if that person, if that almana, if that widow or that yasam or that orphan is going to cry out to me, says Hashem, Shamaya eshmat sakasa, I will certainly hear their cry. And then he goes on to say, V'chara api, I will get very angry, says God. If you end up causing one added ounce of pain to a person who's already in pain, if you make a person that's already suffering anguish, emotional, spiritual, physiological, because of the trauma that they went through in their life, so chara api, my anger is going to be very strong. V'arangti eschem becherev, I will end up killing you with the sword, says Hashem. V'yineshechem almanos, and then your wives will become almanos, they will become widows. Ubenechem yisaimim, your children, God forbid, will become yisaimim, they will become orphans as well. Because that you were so insensitive with the feelings of a person whose feelings are so raw, their emotions are so strong. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, V'chara api, my anger is going to flare up against you. I'll take care. I will defend them because of what you did to them. And then the Torah goes on further. V'im kesef talve es ami, and if you will loan money to my nation as ha'ani imach, meaning there's a mitzvah that you have to loan money to someone that's in need. As ha'ani imach, the poor person imach that is with you. When you're going to loan that poor person money, make sure that you never loan them on ribis with interest. That would be a terrible crime. And the PARSHAS, the commentators explain, the Gemara explains, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to be balei chesed, do acts of kindness. He wants us to give over money like that. not because I'm looking to make some money on it. When I'm going to do a chesed, I'll do a chesed. I'll do an act of kindness. I'll loan you the money. You'll pay me back the money eventually. I'm not going to make a dime on you, my dear Jewish brother and my friend. Rather, I give it to you. And if you do, says the Torah, you're doing the wrong thing. Says Rashi on these words, Es ha'ani imach, the poor man that is with you. It's a very strange language for the Torah to use. It should just say, the poor man that's in need of a loan, so you give the person a loan. What does it mean, Es ha'ani imach, the poor man that is with you? Well, you have a poor man living in your house? You have a poor man who's living on your doorstep? I mean, in LA, it wouldn't be such a rare thing to see. But is that what we're talking about? Says Rashi, no. Hevi mistakel ba'atzmecha, you need to look at yourself. Ki'ilu ata ani, as if you are the poor man. Ha'ani imach, the poor person that is with you. What does it mean that he's with you? It means that you are really together with him. When you can look at yourself as if you are the poor man that is standing in front of you, and you begin to think to yourself, what does it mean that this man is so poor, that he's going knocking on door to door, asking for money for his wife, for his children, for his medical expenses, to pay a bill, to put food on the table. This man traveled from Israel. He left his whole family behind. He's schlepping around all throughout America, and California, and New York, and New Jersey, and he's in Texas, and he's in Baltimore. He's all over the place, sleeping in strange homes, in homes that people don't really want him, barely eating, doesn't take showers all the time. And when's he going to wash his clothing? When you put yourself into the shoes of that poor man, and he's asking you, my dear friend, can you loan me $100? Can you give me some tzedakah? You know what's going on in my life. Do you know how miserable everything is? So when you are mistakel be'atzmecha, you look at yourself ki'ilu ata ani, as if you are the poor man, then you'll be able to give to him in the proper way. Because when you can empathize and you could feel the pain that somebody else is going through, it's then and only then that you are going to be able to treat them and take care of them and feel for them and feel their pain in the right way. And it would seem to be that all of these mitzvahs that we just spoke about right now, how sensitive one has to be to the ger, to the convert, how sensitive one has to be to the almana, to the woman who lost her husband, to the yisayimim, to the ones that lost their fathers or their mothers. How generous you have to be to the poor man that's standing in front of you. Says Rashi, you know the way that you're going to fulfill this mitzvah? When you could see yourself in their shoes and you could understand what they are going through and you could feel their anguish and their pain or their discomfort, what it must feel like, so then you will make sure that you treat this person in the right way. And chas v'chalila, God forbid, you will not do anything that is even going to hurt them a drop. As Rashi points out and others point out, what you only have to be nice to the convert, to the widow, and to the orphan. What about the rest of Klal Yisrael? What about the rest of the world? There was a great rabbi whose name was Rabbi Mendel Kaplan. And Rabbi Mendel Kaplan had great respect and great honor for everybody in the world, Jew and non-Jew alike. And there are many stories of him as he was driving down the street and he would see somebody that was hitchhiking or somebody that was stranded. He was the one, it didn't matter to him whether the person was a Jew or a non-Jew. He would go back and he would take care of them. And there's a story that I'm sure that I've told before. It was once a snowy day. He lived in Philadelphia. It was once a snowy day. And he gets into his car and he's driving down the street. And as he's driving, there is a very large woman whose name was Mary. Now you can understand from her name, she was not a Rebbitzin. Her name was Mary. And she's waddling down the street in the snow. And he drives up next to her and he says, Mary, where are you going in the snow? And she said, to Denny's. I'm hungry. So he said, you're walking in the snow to go to the restaurant to eat. He said, Mary, please, I can't watch you walk down the street like that. Please, come in my car. I'll take you there. And so he opened the door. She opened the door. She got inside the car. And the car drove off. The rabbi with the long beard and the black hat and the long coat drops Mary off at Denny's. And she goes in there and sits down for one of her afternoon feasts. And she walks out of Denny's, who knows, an hour or so later. And who is sitting in the car waiting for her to come back? Rabbi Kaplan. And he rolls down the window and he says, Mary, come. I'll take you home. So what is the Torah saying over here? To the ger, to the convert, you have to be nice. To the almana, to the widow, you have to be nice. To the yisoima, to the yosam, to the orphan, you have to be nice. What about the rest of Klal Yisrael? You don't have to be nice to them? If Rabbi Kaplan was nice to Mary, of course we have to be nice to the rest of the Jewish people. What the Torah is teaching us is that there are certain people in Klal Yisrael that are even more sensitive. And if someone is even more sensitive, and their emotions are even more delicate, and their personal feelings and their honor and their respect, they always feel perhaps is a little bit on the line. And they are mourning over the loss of someone that was very dear to them and close to them, and their house is no longer regular, no longer normal. There's no father anymore to be with his children. There's no father to take care of the mother. There's no husband that is there. And therefore they're living in a world of very raw emotions. Says the Torah, on them you have to be extra careful. Because if you even look in the wrong way, if you raise your voice in the wrong way, if you make a joke in the wrong way, if you're sarcastic in the wrong way, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I will not have any mercy on you, because you did not understand how sensitive the nature of another person is in this world. And that's what Rashi is telling us. Heavy mistakil bi'atzmecha, you must look at yourself ki'ilu ata ani, as if you are the poor person. Know what it feels like. When you're dealing with a person that is sensitive, you must look at yourself as if I'm that person. What are they going through? How are they feeling? What do they feel like when they walk into the room and they see? What does a child feel like who walks into a room and he sees mothers and their children together, and Rahman al-Insan, he doesn't have a mother anymore? What does a woman feel like when she goes to shul and she goes to the kiddush and she sees all the husbands talking to their wives and she doesn't have a husband anymore? What does a ger, what does a convert feel like when he walks into a shul and he feels a little bit different than everybody else, and he feels maybe people are looking? What does he feel like? Says the Torah, you should know how he feels. You should know how she feels. You should know the emotional world that that child is going through, because you must learn how to put yourself in their shoes. And until you do that, you are always on the verge of trampling on their honor, on their emotions, on their feelings, and their respect. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's one thing that I cannot tolerate. I cannot tolerate a person who doesn't feel the pain of another Jew. I can't. If you would be so brazen as to open your mouth and say a word, offhanded comment that would hurt their feelings, and they cry out to me, says Hashem, I will certainly hear their cries, and trust me, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you will get paid back for hurting my children. Because Yisayimim, they don't have a father. I'm their father. And our mother, she doesn't have a husband anymore. I'm the husband, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Just as in the life, when the husband was alive, he would defend his wife. And when the father was alive, he would take care of his children. I'm their father. I'm their husband. I will take care of them. And if you can't put yourself in their place, in their shoes, feel their pain, what they're going through, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that I don't have tolerance. I expect a lot more from the Jewish people. I remember after I was married for about a year, somebody asked me, so what's like the most important thing that you learned in the first year of marriage? So I thought and I said, never tell your wife there's not enough salt in the meat. So, no, that was a joke. She always salts it perfectly. So I said, I think that the lesson that I learned the most from the first year of marriage is that you must be sensitive to the sensitivities of your spouse. And if you could learn how to be sensitive to the sensitivities of your spouse, what makes her happy, what makes her excited, what makes her upbeat, what makes her in a good mood, and what upsets her and disappoints her and frustrates her and makes her sad and makes her anxious, if you could be sensitive to all of that, which only comes in one way, you have to look at yourself as if you're them. I have to put myself in the shoes of my spouse. What is she going through today? It was a tough day for her. She called me already at 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock. She texted me 75 times. She's having a meltdown. And then I come home at the end of the day and my stomach is growling. And all I want is a good dinner, and I look in the kitchen and I don't smell anything, and I look in the fridge and she didn't go shopping today either, and I start walking around the house asking, where is dinner? And she is crying her eyes out. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you don't have any sensitivity for your spouse. You don't understand what she is going through? You didn't put yourself in her place to feel her pain? Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I have a very hard time tolerating that. There's a beautiful story of the great Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish was from the last generation, the Gadol Ador. He was the leader of the generation. He came from Europe to Eretz Yisrael. All of the Torah of Israel that we have today was built on his hadrach, on his direction, and the advice, and the Torah and the halacha that he gave. All of Bnei Brak built up around him, and even the great yeshivas in Jerusalem, many of them are because of his advice and his encouragement. The Chazon Ish was known to be a very sickly individual. He was very fragile, he was very weak. Even in his youth, he wasn't a strong, robust person. If you'll ever see pictures, he was so skinny and he was so slight and small. And he had terrible stomach ailments most of his life. He was never in good health. So you can imagine a man like this doesn't have long amounts of stamina. He doesn't have a lot of physical energy to do physical activities. He wasn't in the gym every single day pumping the iron. That was not the Chazon Ish. So it was once on Simchas Torah. And the Chazon Ish, it was the nighttime. He had gone to the great yeshiva of Panovich, which was the premier yeshiva at the time and still is. And he danced with the bachrim, he danced with the young men, like he himself was a spry young man. And he put in all of his energy, and he sweat, and he danced till the wee hours of the morning. And people were amazed to see the Chazon Ish, that he was in such a heightened level of energy that he was doing such things. After all of the dancing of Simchas Torah was over, he was walking back to his apartment, followed and flanked by a delegation of so many students and admirers of the Chazon Ish that walked him back to his home. As they're walking, it's right now, very late at night, early hours of the morning, they pass a yid on a bench. And the man looks like a disheveled mess. He's got like a collar sticking out of his coat like this. His hair is unkempt. He's got one of these old yarmulkes, like the brown yarmulkes that some people have. Once upon a time it was black, but it turned like brown or yellow because they just didn't get around to buying a new one for a while. So he had like a yellow yarmulke. He had stains on his shirt. His jacket was black. His pants were faded blue. He had a shoe that was ripped, and one had a lace, and one didn't have a lace. He had one sock was pulled up, and it was white. The other one was black, and it was pushed down. He looked like a total mess. We'll call him a shlemazel shebeshlemazel, the biggest shlemazel you could imagine. And as the Chazon Ish is walking home, and he sees this fellow on the bench in Bnei Brak, he says, "Good Yom Tiv." And the man looks back at the Chazon Ish and he says, "Good Yom Tiv? Does it look like I'm having a good Yom Tiv?" And the Chazon Ish stopped, not one to ever make somebody feel bad. And he walks over, he says, "What's the matter?" He says, "What's the matter? I'm a ger, I'm a convert. I converted to this religion because I saw the beauty and the grandeur and the simcha, the joy of what it means to be a Jew. And I dreamed I'm going to become Jewish, I'm going to have a beautiful wife and a wonderful family and beautiful children, and I'm going to have such a wonderful life." He says, "Rabbi, look at me. Do I look like I got the wonderful life that I was dreaming of? I have nothing. I have no wife, I have no children, I barely have a house. I have no friends, nobody takes care of me. I have nothing. And you tell me, good Yom Tiv, have a good Yom Tiv." The Chazon Ish felt terrible. Terrible. And he looks at the man and he says, "Are there any songs that you like from Simchas Torah?" And the man looks, "Do you hear me?" He said, "Tell me, are there any songs that you like from Simchas Torah?" And he says, "Yeah, there's one song." And the Chazon Ish says, "What song is that?" He tells him, "Torahs Hashem Temima." And the Chazon Ish says, "You mean this one? Torahs Hashem Temima, Torahs." And the ger says, "Yes." And the Chazon Ish, after dancing till the wee hours of the morning, the old, fragile sage with stomach ailments and pain, who has not barely any ounce of energy left in his body, he begins singing and dancing the same way that he was when he was in the Beis Midrash, dancing with the Torah on Simchas Torah. And he's singing and he gets everybody else involved. And the next thing you know, they're dancing around the man on the bench and they're singing, "Torahs Hashem Temim," and they pull him up and they dance together with him. And the man smiles a smile that he probably never smiled in his whole life. And he thanked the Chazon Ish profusely after everything was over. Says the Torah, if you don't understand the pain that another person is going through, then you'll never empathize for them, you'll never understand them, you'll never treat them in the right way, and you could be walking back at 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning, you're the Gadol Ador, the leader of the generation, you have a lot of other things on your mind, and you'll miss the opportunity to take care of one of Hashem's children. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you can't live like that, I don't have tolerance. And the Torah is so strong about it that the Torah actually says over here that if you're not going to be careful with the emotional world and the dignity of these people who are already tashushi kayach, they're already weakened from what they've gone through, I will take care of you in a way that you don't want to know, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Horowitz Zeichet Tzadik Livracha, had once in the city of Radin a terrible story. There was a woman who wasn't almana, she was a widow, and she had children. She lived in a small little house, and she didn't have much money. Her husband had passed away, didn't have a grand job, there was no money in the savings, nothing in the bank. And in order to pay her rent, it was very difficult to pay the rent. She was trying to do odds and ends, little jobs over here and there, maybe stitch somebody's holes in their clothing. She could barely make any money. She had little kids at home, she's taking care of them. And the landlord comes at the end of the month and he says, "New lady, pay up." She says, "Please forgive me. My husband died not so long ago. He didn't leave me with any money. I'm trying to work a little bit. It's very hard for me. Please, have Rahmanis, have some mercy on me, please. I don't have the money this month. Please give me another month. And he says to the lady, fine, I'll have mercy on you for the next month. Next month, I'm expecting not only the payment for next month, but for this month's rent as well. Thank you, she says. The month goes on. She tries to get an odd job here, an odd job there. Nothing works. The kids, one has the flu and this one has an earache. She can't even go to work. And before you know it, 30 days. She gets a knock on the door. She opens the door. It's the landlord. Please, she says, please, have Rahmanis, have mercy on me. It was a hard month. I wasn't able to really work. I don't have the money. Please have mercy on me. Give me another chance. Please, I'm an almana. I'm a widow. I have no one to take care of me. And he says, listen, lady, this is your last chance. Next month, I want to be paid for next month's rent, and this month's rent, and last month's rent as well. That's the last chance you're going to have. Otherwise, you're out of here. And you understand the next month with the same story. And comes 30 days, the landlord comes back, and he knocks on the door. She hears that knock. She begins getting panicky and nervous. She opens the door. She says, please have Rahmanis. I had Rahmanis on you already. Please, you don't understand. I do understand. I told you have to pay me 3 months. You have nothing? Please, I have nothing, please. I'm a poor almana. I don't have a husband. Please, I'm a widow. What do you want from me? Please, have Rahmanis. Miss, I had mercy on you for 3 months already. I've got to make a living over here. Out of the house. She said, please, I have nowhere to go. I have little children. Please, have Rahmanis, have pity on us. Out of the house. I don't know where to go, she says. I have no place to go. Please, let me stay here for a little while longer. He says, if you're not going to get out of the house, I will make you get out of the house. And he slams the door. The lady doesn't leave. She doesn't know what that means. The next day she hears the sounds of hammers banging. And she looks up and she sees that the roof to her house is being removed. The landlord, with not an ounce of compassion for this woman, he had his workers come in and rip the roof off of the house so that this woman would realize she is no longer wanted in that house, and she would have no place, nothing else to do but to get out of there. And at that point, the woman left the house. When the people of the town heard what was going on, they were up in arms, and they came to the man and said, how dare you? She's an almana, she's a widow, she has little children, they're Yisayimim, they're orphans, how could you do this? And the man said, business is business. You take care of your business, I'll take care of mine. When the words of this tragedy reached the ears of the Horowitz said, I only know one thing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu promises in His Torah that if someone has no pity and mercy and compassion on an almana and a yasam, on a widow and an orphan, and they will cry out in pain, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I will hear what they are crying, and trust me, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'chara api, my anger will flare, and I will take care of you in a way that you cannot imagine. Says the Horowitz, the story is not yet over. I am sure that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will do something to this man. 10 years passed. The woman and her children, I don't know what happened to them. The man continued renting out his home and so on and so forth. After 10 years, he was once walking down the street and a rabid wild dog came along and bit him so hard that he put his rabies into this man. And the man got such a bad case of rabies that he fell sick almost instantaneously. And he ended up going into that house to convalesce in that particular house that he'd thrown the woman out of. And eventually he died in a very short amount of time from the rabies that he got from the bite of that dog. And he was so sick that nobody wanted to come and take care of him. And his body was so sick with the rabies that was there, even the Chevra Kedisha that takes care of everybody didn't want to come and take care of him until finally, after a certain amount of time, they went in and they buried him, and that was the end of the man. Says the Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I have tolerance for a lot. You want to miss davening? I'll tolerate you. You want to eat food that's not kosher? I'll tolerate you. You want to not put on tefillin today? I'll tolerate you. You want to make a mistake in the laws of Shabbos and desecrate Shabbos? I can tolerate that. But if you don't have sensitivity to another person who deserves Rahmanis, who deserves to be, you should be compassionate, and that's how you're going to behave, that, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, sorry, for that, my patience has run very thin. And the Chavetz Chaim, there was another story in his town. It was the time of the war, and it was maybe World War I. And if anybody knows, there were ways to pay off the Russian army so that your child did not have to go into the Russian army. It was a big pachad. It was very frightening if your child went into the Russian army, because their mission was to take a young child into the army, keep him there for like 20, 25 years. They would knock all the Judaism out of his head, and after 25 years, if he was still alive, they would release him, and he would be no better than any non-Jew on the street. He didn't know anything at all anymore about Judaism. They were called the Cantonists. So one of the ways that you could get yourself and save your children was you could pay off the government, you could pay off the government, you could pay off the army, and you could give them a nice bribe and save your child in that way. There was a worse way that you could do it. And that was that instead of your own child going into the army, you could find some wayward kid, some poor child that lived in the community that didn't have anybody watching over him, and you would tell to the commander who was coming to get your kid, don't take my son, here's $100, but I know you have to have a quota. That kid that lives down the street, take that kid instead. So there was a very wealthy butcher who lived in town, and his son was drafted into the army. And the commander of the army came to snatch his son and take him away. And the butcher said, wait a second. What's it going to cost to keep my son? And the man says, of course, we don't deal like that. I'm sure that you don't. And he starts counting out the rubles. And he gives him a very big sum of rubles. And the commander says, but wait a second, that's only for me. But the army still needs to have a child, because there's a quota that we have to fill. He said, don't worry. Down the street is a poor boy. Parents are never around. If you go over there right now, you'll find him in his house probably doing nothing. Snatch him and take him. He'll go in place of my son. And so the commanding officer from the Russian army went down the street, knocked on the door. The little boy answered the door. He grabbed the kid and he took him to the army. And now we don't know what happened to him. When the Chavetz Chaim heard of this story, he said, how is it possible that a Jew does this to another Jew? How is it possible? He said the Torah tells us how careful and how sensitive and how loving and merciful you have to be. How can he do such a thing? HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not forget. He will not forget what this man has done. He put another person in the place of his son. He will not forget. 30 years later, this son, this particular son, the one that was saved, he himself developed a terrible machla, a terrible sickness. And he was like toxic from the sickness. And he was in the house, he was so sick, even the doctors did not want to come and treat him. And as he was there, he died. And once again, he was so sick and he was so toxic, so many germs and diseases, not even the Chevra Kedisha would touch the body and go into this house. So 30 years later, after the story, his aging and ailing father, the one who made the transaction, was the one that was responsible for taking care of and burying his own child. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I have a high level of tolerance. Very, very high. But if you cause pain, and that person cries out to me and tells me how bad they feel because of what you did to them, that, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it doesn't work. I can't forgive. We're now, as we said, 124 days into this terrible war that's taking place in Gaza. We keep reading the news and we see the stories, and yes, the IDF is confident that they've killed 75% of all the Hamas terrorists. That's wonderful, but there's still another 25% that are at large. And even after they do all of that, who knows exactly what's going to happen? Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows. We have no idea. We really have no idea how long it's going to drag on. We don't know what the world pressure is going to be. We don't know how anti-Semitism is going to continue to rear its ugly heads all over the world. We have no idea. But we do know one thing. Many Jews have fallen in this war. Besides the 1,400, which was gigantic in the very beginning, day number 1. And that means all the almanais, all of the Yisayimim, all of the widows, all of the orphans that are in the world. All the women that delivered children and their husbands are no longer alive in the last several months. And all the soldiers who, when we open up the news in the morning and we see what's going on, who lost their lives the night before fighting valiantly in battle. Some of them are 18 years old. Some of them are 19 years old. They were taken in the prime of their life. And they left behind mothers and fathers and siblings who are mourning their loss. I just saw a story today, Rahman al-Atsan, one of the young men, he was a reservist, 26 years old, I believe. He was a chassan, he got engaged. He was only several weeks away from his marriage. And he had to go off as a reservist. And he didn't even get shot or injured in battle. He developed some kind of Gazan fungal disease. And he was rushed into the hospital. And just yesterday or today, he ended up succumbing to the dreaded fungal disease, leaving behind a kala, a mother, a father, siblings, a whole life. But as we look at the news, with our latte in one hand and our Danish in the other hand, and our ear pods in with our favorite music in one ear and our something else listening to our messages in the other ear, so we just think, oh, okay. It's so sad. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's not the response of a Jew. The response of a Jew is that heavy mistakel be'atzmecha, you look at yourself ke'ilu ata ani, as if you are the poor man. You need to put yourself into the mind of that kala, of that bride whose groom soldier was killed in battle. You need to put yourself into the heart and the pain of the father, of the mother that is now standing by the Levi at the funeral of their son, wailing and mourning. You need to know what it feels like to be a sibling whose brother was taken in battle, or a family who lost their child at the Nova Festival. You have to feel and put yourself in that place. And if you can't, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then you'll never have the right rachmanis, the right compassion, and the right mercy, and the right feeling, and the right tears will never well in your eyes over what is going on. And as the war continues to drag on, it's only natural that we should become desensitized to the images we see in front of us. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't expect Klal Yisrael to be just like any other nation. And we don't abide by the laws of nature. Well, that's normal and that's natural. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to retain our Jewish identity. And the way of the Jews is that we are Rachmanim u'Baishanim u'Goim lechasadim. We are sensitive, caring, compassionate, generous, and kind individuals, always. And just like we felt the pain 124 days ago, we have to be able to feel the pain even now, 124 days later. Just like we saw the news 120 days ago and we couldn't believe what we were seeing. It's not normal that we should be at war for such a long time and things are going on the way it is. It should still bother us. And just like on day number 1 on Simchas Torah, when we heard the news of what was going on and we banded together and we said Tehillim with tears in our eyes, every single one crying and singing Achenu together, and the women were literally bawling in the Ezra's Nashim, we have to say Tehillim with the same fervor and the same emotion and the same feeling and the same davening and the same tefillahs, the same way that it was earlier, much earlier on. Because the soldiers aren't giving up. The soldiers' conviction is not waning. There's a girl, one of my students in Beis Yaakov, she has a brother who is a soldier in Gaza. And he was supposed to be released after, I think, over 1 month in Khan Yunis. And as they're releasing him, they told him, you can leave. He said, leave now? Leave the battlefield now? When we're fighting a battle of good versus evil, protecting and defending Klal Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael, leave now? No, I'm staying right here. Yeah, but your family, I'm staying right here. And he registered exactly what you do. He signed himself back up and he said, I'm staying right here. And the family just spoke to him for the first time in 6 weeks. And he told them, Baruch Hashem, everything Bli Anhar is going very well over here. He didn't change over the last 124 days. He didn't lose his morale. He didn't lose his conviction. He didn't lose his excitement and enthusiasm to go and fight the battles of Klal Yisrael over our enemies. So we that are sitting thousands of miles away, who don't have to worry about being in Khan Yunis or going into Lebanon or having to hear missiles dropping all around or gunshots and bullet shots, we don't have to worry about any of that. Only one thing says Hashem, I want to see that you feel what's going on in Klal Yisrael. I want to see that you understand what they're going through. I want you to look at a picture the next time when you look online and you see Rahman al-Islam, a funeral, and you see parents wailing. I want you to feel their pain. Because that's what a Jew is. And if you can feel that for the ones that are thousands of miles away, then you'll feel it for the people that are sitting in your midst. Whether it's the ger, whether it's the almana, whether it's the yasam and the yisayma, whether it's your wife, whether it's your children, whether it's your friend, whether it's your parents, you'll feel the pain. And that, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is the way that we are supposed to behave. And if, in fact, we do that, then we are mistakil ba'atzmecha ki'ilu ata ani. You got it, says Hashem. It's not just a poor man standing in front of you. You are the poor man. It's not just a spouse that had a hard day and she's in emotional anguish. You are the spouse. You understand it. You got it. It's not just the kid that was bullied all day long by a teacher, by a kid on the playground, and he comes home in a bad mood and you're wondering why he's not doing his homework and he's lying on the couch like this. Get into the head. Get into the heart. And understand. And then you are the kid. He's right, you're there right together with him. There's a woman whose son was taken hostage. The boy's name is Uri. The woman, I'm forgetting her name right now, she was here in LA, I don't know if she's still here. She went around, I think she spoke no less than 50 times while she was here in Los Angeles. She came to my daughter's school. And she spoke about her experiences and everything she's going through and everything her family is going through. And she's a religious woman, so she's filled with emunah and filled with bitachon and trust in Hashem. And she was telling all the girls, what could you do? You know what you could do? You could be stronger in your davening. You could be stronger in your mitzvahs. You could be stronger in your amunah. You could be stronger in your bitachon. That will be a great merit for my child and the rest of the hostages that need to get out of. That's what you could do. So she told over an amazing story. She has a 10-year-old daughter. And the way that my daughter told over the story is different than I heard it, but I'm going to tell over the way my daughter told the story. She has a 10-year-old daughter whose birthday was coming up, and they took her out to dinner. They took her to a restaurant. You know, they have to try to be as normal as possible to take their minds off of all the pain that they're in. So they take their 10-year-old daughter to the restaurant, and at the end of the meal, what do you do at a restaurant when it's someone's birthday? You bring them a cake with the candle on top. Some people, they go to the restaurant and they say, it's my birthday, you know. And their birthday was 6 months ago, but that's how you get a piece of cake and a candle for free. Very honest, Baruch Hashem. But this family, it was the girl's birthday. And they take her to the restaurant and they tell the waiter it's her birthday, you know. And so they bring the cake and the candle. And the mother says to her daughter, before you blow out the candle, make a wish. Why don't you wish that Hashem is going to bring your brother back? So the little 10-year-old girl looks at her mother and she says, I don't want to wish that. Because if my brother is the only one that comes back, then Ima, we're the only ones that are going to be happy. What about the rest of the families of the hostages? She said, I'm going to wish that Mashiach will come. And if Mashiach will come, the war will be over and everybody will come back. Says the Torah, Hevi mistakel ba'atzmecha, look at yourself as if you are the poor man, as if you are the almana, as if you are the yisoima, as if you are the ger, as if you are the person that is struggling. Look at yourself, it's you. And then you'll understand what the other person feels like. And then you'll wish, as this little 10-year-old girl wished for, that Mashiach should come soon. And in that merit, Be'ez Hashem, the war will end, the pain and the suffering will end. HaKadosh Baruch will bring back everybody safe and sound and healthy. And all of us will go singing and dancing together as one to Yerushalayim Yah HaKodesh B'mheira V'yameinu.